Welcome to BioTales, where we explore groundbreaking stories in biotech. Today we're looking at SetPoint Medical. Their big idea, it didn't start in some high-tech lab.
No, not at all. It actually started, believe it or not, on a steakhouse napkin.
A steakhouse napkin, that's quite the origin story.
It really is. We're talking about Dr. Kevin Tracy, a neurosurgeon, an immunologist, and this flash of insight that could reshape how we treat autoimmune diseases.
Right. So before we get to the napkin itself, let's maybe set the scene a bit. Chronic inflammation.
Exactly. That's the villain in diseases like rheumatoid arthritis, Crohn's, multiple sclerosis, the list goes on.
And the usual approach has been, immune-suppressing drugs, powerful stuff, but...
They come with baggage, right?
Yeah.
High costs, and they can leave patients vulnerable to infections. It's a trade-off.
So SetPoint comes along with this really audacious idea, using tiny electrical pulses, tell the body to calm itself down.
Pretty much, yeah. To teach the body to quiet its own inflammation is a fascinating concept.
And our goal today is to trace that journey from that napkin sketch all the way to August 2025.
Which was a huge milestone.
Absolutely.
Right.
The first FDA approval for a Neuro-Immune modulator, specifically for rheumatoid arthritis. A really significant development.
It's an incredible story, and it has some really deep, almost tragic roots. We need to go back to 1985.
Okay.
Kevin Tracy, he was a surgical resident in New York back then. And he had this patient, an infant named Janice. She had severe burns, but she was actually recovering, doing well against the odds.
Sounds promising.
It was. But then suddenly her heart just stopped. They tried everything, but Janice died. And the autopsy. No clear answers.
Wow, how devastating.
Utterly. And it turned out she died from this massive runaway inflammatory response sepsis, basically.
Right.
That unexplained death, it stuck with Tracy.
Became an obsession.
Absolutely. It really shaped his entire career. He dedicated himself to understanding inflammation, figuring out how to control it.
So that personal connection really drove the science.
Decades of it. In his lab, he started doing experiments, animal models, and he found something really interesting. If he cut the vagus nerve.
The vagus nerve, right. The big one connecting the brain and the body.
Exactly. If he cut that nerve, certain anti-inflammatory drugs just stopped working. They lost their effect.
So the nerve was somehow involved in how those drugs work.
That was the implication. He showed the brain actually sends signals down the vagus nerve to actively suppress inflammation. And then the key step, he showed you could get the same anti-inflammatory effect just by electrically stimulating that nerve. No drugs needed.
Okay, that's a leap. So the nervous system is directly talking to the immune system.
So that was a radical idea. They weren't separate systems operating in isolation. The brain could dial down inflammation via this nerve pathway.
Which brings us back to the State House.
Right. So he's got all this research, this understanding building up, and then bam, inspiration strikes over dinner. He grabs a napkin and just scrawls down the core idea. Make a device to control the nerve to turn off TNF, tumor necrosis factor. A key inflammatory molecule. Simple, direct. That was the blueprint for SetPoint Medical.
Just like that. From decades of research to a napkin sketch.
It's amazing how it happens sometimes. By the early 2000s, he'd formalized this. He called it the inflammatory reflex. Published key papers showing vagus nerve stimulation could shut down those harmful inflammatory cytokines.
The science was there, solidified. But turning that into a therapy, into a company, that's a whole different challenge.
Oh, absolutely. You need more than just good papers. You need collaboration, investment, a clear strategy.
So who else came into the picture?
That's where Dr. H. Shaw Warren comes in. He was an inflammation specialist, Mass General, and he'd collaborated with Tracy quite a bit. He saw the potential almost immediately.
They saw it wasn't just interesting science, it was a potential therapy.
Exactly. They decided, okay, let's do this. Let's build the first bioelectronic therapy for autoimmune disease. So 2007, they co-found SetPoint Medical.
And the mission was clear from the start.
Crystal clear. Harness that inflammatory reflex for conditions like RA, but without the drugs.
And they specifically picked rheumatoid arthritis, RA, as the first target. Why RA?
Several reasons, really. It's common, it's debilitating, millions suffer from it, and there was a big unmet need.
Right. You mentioned the existing drugs don't work for everyone.
Exactly. And they're expensive. We're talking, over $30 billion a year spent on biologics for RA. Plus, RA had, well-defined ways to measure if a treatment was working, the clinical endpoints, and a large patient population for trials.
Makes sense strategically. So how do they get started with patients?
They needed a clinical partner. They teamed up with Paul Petertak, a rheumatologist over in Amsterdam at the Academic Medical Center.
And the device. Did they build one from scratch right away?
Not initially. Smart move, actually. They decided to repurpose an existing device, a vagus nerve stimulator that was already FDA approved, but for epilepsy. They figured, let's use this proven hardware for our first human studies in RA.
Clever. Faster path to the clinic?
Definitely. So they started implanting this epilepsy device in patients with really severe RA.
And this is where we start seeing the real human impact.
The story of the very first patient is just powerful. He was a middle-aged man from Bosnia. His RA was so bad, his joints so painful, he couldn't even button his own shirt.
That paints a picture. Debilitating.
Completely. But then, within weeks of getting the implant activated, the change was dramatic.
Really? That fast?
That fast. His pain just subsided. He got back to driving trucks for a living. And get this, he started playing ping pong again. Apparently, with so much enthusiasm, he actually injured his knee playing.
Wow. From unable to button a shirt to ping pong injuries. That's quite a turnaround.
Tracy said seeing results like that just completely re-energized the whole team, you can imagine.
I can. So this was the pilot study in Amsterdam.
Yes. By 2012, they published the results. It was an open-label study, small, only 8 patients. But 6 out of those 8 showed real, meaningful improvement. 2 even went into remission.
And side effects.
Reportedly very mild, which is huge, right?
Yeah.
Compared to the systemic side effects of many RA drugs. This audacious idea was suddenly looking very real, very tangible.
It really does illustrate the potential, doesn't it? It's incredible. Yeah. So naturally, people would want to know how this was working. What's the science under the hood?
Right. So let's break it down a bit. The vagus nerve, like we said, it's this huge communication cable. Think of it like 100,000 fibers bundled together, carrying signals back and forth between organs and the brain.
An information superhighway.
Exactly. And Tracy's work identified specific fibers within that bundle that have this job of dialing down inflammation.
So the SetPoint device targets those specific fibers.
Precisely. It delivers this short electrical pulse, just about a minute long. That pulse stimulates the vagus nerve, which then sends a signal down the line to the splenic nerve. That signal triggers the release of a neurotransmitter, norepinephrine, in the spleen. Now, in the spleen, there are specialized immune cells, these CD4 T cells. They have receptors for norepinephrine. When they bind it, they get activated to release another chemical messenger, acetylcholine.
Acetylcholine, like the nerve signal molecule.
The very same. And this acetylcholine then binds to specific receptors called alpha-7 nicotinic receptors, which are found on other immune cells, macrophages mainly.
And that's the key interaction.
That's the key. Binding to that alpha-7 receptor tells the macrophage to basically chill out. It inhibits the production and release of those major pro-inflammatory cytokines, TNF, IL-6, IL-1 beta, the ones that cause so much trouble in RA. It works by suppressing the internal signaling pathways like NF-kappa B and JAK-STAT.
So it's like flicking an off switch on the inflammation production line, but doing it via the nervous system.
A very good way to put it. And what's really neat is that it seems to be a broad but physiologic modulation. It calms the damaging inflammation.
Without completely knocking out the immune system. Big problem with the suppressants.
Exactly. It preserves the ability to fight infection. But there's more. Vagus nerve stimulation also seems to trigger the release of pro-resolving mediators. These are molecules that actively help resolve inflammation and protect tissues. Specifically in RA, they seem to reduce the activity of osteoclasts.
Osteoclasts. Those are the cells that break down bone.
Correct. So by reducing their activity, the stimulation might actually help prevent the joint erosion, the bone damage, that's so characteristic of severe RA.
So it's not just stopping the inflammation, it might be actively protecting the joint too.
That's the idea, and that's a potentially huge advantage over drugs that just block one specific cytokine. This is modulating a whole reflex, a whole system.
That dual action, calming inflammation and protecting tissue, sounds incredibly promising. But promising science needs funding. Lots of it.
Always the case in biotech. Initially, SetPoint relied on grants, some smaller investments. They got seed funding, Series A, Series B from medtech VCs, and importantly, from GSK's Action Potential Venture Capital.
GSK got in relatively early then.
They did. Their Action Potential Fund was specifically set up to invest in this emerging field of bioelectronic medicine. But things really shifted gears in 2013.
What happened then?
They raised a pretty substantial Series C round, $27 million.
Okay, that's significant.
And look who came in. Corvidian Ventures, Boston Scientific, major med tech players, plus GSK's fund upped its commitment. That was a huge vote of confidence. It signaled that the big strategics were starting to believe in this approach for autoimmune disease.
And that wasn't the end of that round.
No, 2 years later, they extended it, added another $15 million, bringing the Series C total up to $43 million. Really solidified those relationships, especially with GSK.
And this funding allowed them to move beyond repurposing that epilepsy device.
Exactly. This was the capital they needed to design and build their own bespoke implant, the microregulator. Small, coin-sized, specifically designed for this therapy.
Who was leading the company through this phase?
A serial entrepreneur named Anthony Arnold. He had this great quote describing their work as using electricity to turn dormant circuits back on. Captures it nicely, doesn't it?
It does. But building this microregulator, that couldn't have been simple. You're talking about an implanted device.
Definitely not simple. It's a Class 3 medical device. That's the highest risk category. The FDA requires the most rigorous testing, clinical trials, quality control, the works.
So the manufacturing must have been complex.
Very. Forbes did a piece on it later. Apparently they designed it in California, but the specialized electrodes were made in Washington state. Then assembly happened in Boston and sterilization back on the West Coast.
A distributed model, using specialists everywhere.
Had to meet the quality and regulatory demands. It's a sophisticated piece of tech.
Tell us more about the microregulator itself. How does it work for the patient?
So it's this small device, surgically placed against the vagus nerve in the neck. It has integrated electrodes that deliver that precise current we talked about.
And the patient controls it.
No, that's the beauty of it. It's automated. Turns on by itself for just 1 minute each day to deliver the therapy.
1 minute a day, that's it.
That's it. And charging is wireless. They wear a small band, usually once a week or so, to recharge it.
That sounds remarkably convenient compared to injections or infusions.
That's what patients in the trials consistently said. The freedom it offered was a huge benefit. No remembering shots, no scheduling clinic visits for infusions. Just live your life.
Okay, so by 2018, the device is developed. They have promising early RA data, maybe even some hints in other diseases.
Yeah, they had a small 16-patient pilot study in Crohn's disease that also showed some positive signals, reducing inflammation markers. The potential was clearly broadening.
But the company realized they needed a shift in leadership.
Right. They needed someone with experience taking a device like this through the final stages, through pivotal trials, and towards commercialization. That's when Dr. Murthy Simhambatla came on board as CEO.
And his background was more in device commercialization?
Yes, a bioengineer who'd successfully taken other medical device companies public. Apparently, he was initially skeptical.
Skeptical of the whole idea.
He admitted thinking treating autoimmune disease with nerve stimulation sounded absolutely crazy at first.
Understandable, maybe.
But then he dug into the data, all the preclinical work, the early human results, and he became a believer, completely convinced.
And he brought a specific perspective, didn't he, about evidence?
He did. He understood that for a device company breaking into a field dominated by drugs, you absolutely need top-tier evidence, level 1 evidence, he called it. That means large, randomized, controlled trials, no cutting corners.
You have to definitively prove it works to overcome that inherent skepticism.
Precisely. His mission became clear. Take this promising science from the feasibility stage and turn it into an FDA-approved therapy that could reach millions.
Which requires even more funding.
Of course. Over the next few years, they raised another $80 million. That was specifically earmarked for the big pivotal trial in RA, but for scaling up manufacturing capacity.
And the team grew too.
Yes, reflecting that shift towards commercialization. They brought in David Chernoff as Chief Medical Officer, Rohan Seth as CFO with deep experience in devices, in rheumatology, in navigating that path to market.
Okay, so the stage is set for the crucial trial, Reset RA.
This was the big one, the make-or-break trial. It was randomized, sham-controlled.
Sham-controlled? How did they do that with an implant?
Everyone in the trial got an implanted device, but for patients in the control group, the sham group, the device was never turned on. It didn't deliver any electrical stimulation.
So the patients wouldn't know if they were getting active treatment or not. That maintains the blinding?
Exactly. Crucial for a high-quality trial. They enrolled 242 patients, all with moderate to severe RA who hadn't had a good response to biologic drugs already. So a tough-to-treat population.
And the main thing they were measuring?
The primary endpoint was the ACR20 response at 12 weeks. That's a standard rheumatology measure, means at least a 20% improvement in symptoms and disease activity counts. It's a key benchmark.
And the results, when did those come out?
Mid-2024, and they were good. really good.
Statistically significant improvement.
Yes, the group with the active device showed a statistically significant higher ACR20 response rate compared to the sham group. Plus, the safety profile continued to look very favorable.
Any other interesting findings, like the bone protection?
Yes, they reported that MRI data from the trial suggested the active stimulation was indeed providing some protection against joint erosion. That dual action seemed to be holding up.
That must have generated a lot of excitement.
Huge buzz in the field. And it led directly to the next major milestone.
The FDA approval.
August 2025, the FDA grants approval. The SetPoint system becomes the very first neuromodulation therapy officially indicated for rheumatoid arthritis.
Just pause on that for a second. That's genuinely historic, isn't it?
It really is. It's not just a win for SetPoint. It's a landmark moment for the whole field of bioelectronic medicine. It signals that regulators are now seriously considering device-based therapies for systemic autoimmune conditions, not just neurological ones like epilepsy or Parkinson's.
It opens up a whole new therapeutic category, potentially.
Absolutely. It sets a precedent.
So with approval secured, the focus shifts immediately to getting it to patients. Commercialization.
Right. And hot on the heels of the approval, in August 2025, they announced another major funding round. $140 million total.
Wow, $140 million.
Yeah, it included an extension of the Series C plus a brand new $115 million Series D round, co-led by Elevage Medical Technologies and Ally Bridge Group.
New investors coming in.
Yes, and some interesting strategic ones like Northwell Health, a major health system, and Sprig Equity. Plus, importantly, continued support from their existing investors, Abbott, Boston Scientific, NEA, Viking. Shows ongoing confidence.
And they made key hires for the commercial launch.
They did. Eric Stysich came in as VP of Sales, Spencer Bailey as VP of Market Access. That tells you exactly where their focus is now. Sales infrastructure, and crucially, getting reimbursement sorted out with insurance.
Because the technology could be great, but if payers don't cover it,
it won't reach patients. Market access is critical. Simhan Bhatla has said the plan is an initial launch in select U.S. markets first, followed by a broader nationwide rollout probably in 2026.
And RA is just the start for them. You mentioned Crohn's and MS.
Definitely. That positive pilot data in Crohn's has them planning a larger trial there, and they've got IDE clearance investigational device exemption from the FDA to start a trial in relapsing remitting multiple sclerosis, planning to enroll about 60 patients for that one.
So the platform potential is really starting to show.
Yeah, and if you look further out, they're talking about potentially targeting psoriasis, lupus, Sjögren's syndrome, other autoimmune diseases where this inflammatory reflex likely plays a role.
It really highlights the difference between their approach and a targeted drug.
Exactly. Drugs often go after one molecule, one pathway. SetPoint is modulating an entire physiological reflex. The hope is that leads to broader benefits, maybe fewer ways for the disease to escape the therapy, and potentially a better side effect profile.
And the economics look potentially favorable, too.
That's a key part of the value proposition. The implant itself is estimated around $30,000, plus the surgical procedure cost. Compare that to biologic drugs, which can easily cost $50,000, $60,000, even more per year, often for life.
So over time, the device could offer significant savings to the healthcare system and to patients.
That's the argument they'll be making to payers. And those partnerships they built are key here, too.
Right. GSK early on, Boston Scientific, Abbott.
Those provide not just investment, but potential manufacturing scale, distribution channels, technical know-how. And the Northwell Health investment is interesting. A major hospital system investing directly signals clinical buy-in and could help smooth adoption and gather that all-important real-world evidence after launch.
It really feels like a story about convergence. Immunology, neuroscience, engineering, all coming together.
Absolutely. And leadership evolution, too. From the scientific founders like Tracy and Warren, through the early engineering phase with Arnold, now to Simhan Bhatla and his team focused squarely on commercial execution, it mirrors the journey from bench to bedside.
From that tragic case that sparked the initial question to the napkin sketch, the Amsterdam trials, and now FDA approval. It's quite a journey.
It really is a testament to persistence, collaboration, and that initial scientific curiosity.
So as SetPoint gears up for launch and looks towards Crohn's, MS, and beyond, what's the big takeaway thought?
I think it forces us to ask, are we entering a new era? If this neuroimmune modulation approach proves durable and effective in RA and then potentially shows similar benefits in Crohn's, in MS, we might genuinely be witnessing the start of a paradigm shift.
Where we move beyond just drugs and start harnessing the body's own electrical wiring to treat complex diseases.
Exactly. Using the body's own circuits to heal itself It's a profound idea, and SetPoint is right at the forefront of making it a reality.
Well, this has been a fascinating look at SetPoint Medical's journey. Thank you for joining us on BioTales. If you enjoyed this story, please do leave us a review, share it with others who might find it interesting, and join us next time for another BioTale. Until then, keep exploring and stay curious.